What if I told you that the most powerful tool in your ice fishing arsenal, your auger, is probably the reason your bucket is empty? It sounds crazy, I know. Today, we're tearing down one of the oldest beliefs in ice fishing, the idea that drilling more holes always means more fish. We've all heard it, we've all done it. But I'm going to show you why less can be more, and how a quiet, strategic approach can put you on fish when the Swiss cheese method fails completely. The answer lies in understanding what's really happening under the ice when you fire up that engine. Think I'm wrong? Let me know in the comments right now if you believe more holes equal more fish. I'm ready for the debate. For years, the run and gun philosophy has dominated ice fishing. We see it on TV shows, we read about it in magazines. The logic seems solid. The more water you cover, the more likely you are to find active fish. So we get to the lake, and the first thing we do is start punching holes everywhere. We create a grid, a zigzag, a giant circle. We make the ice look like it's been hit with a shotgun blast. There's also a bit of peer pressure, isn't there? You see another group on the ice drilling 50 holes, and you feel like you're not trying hard enough if you only drill 5. This mentality has been passed down for generations, a so-called tried and true method. But we rarely stop to ask a critical question. What is all this activity doing to the fish we're trying to catch? Let's start with the most obvious factor: noise. To us, an ice auger is just a loud engine, but to a fish, it's a cataclysmic event. Imagine you're sitting quietly in your living room, and suddenly a jackhammer starts tearing through your ceiling. That's the level of violence we're introducing into their world. Water transmits sound incredibly well, far better than air. That high-frequency scream of a two-stroke engine, or even the powerful whine of an electric auger, doesn't just stay in the immediate area. It sends powerful vibrations and shockwaves in every direction. It's an alarm bell that screams danger to every living thing in the vicinity. This isn't just a minor annoyance for the fish, it's a terrifying, unnatural invasion of their environment. Now, let's talk about how fish perceive this. They don't just hear with their ears like we do. Fish have a lateral line, a highly sensitive organ that runs down the side of their body. It's designed to detect minute pressure changes and vibrations in the water. This is how they hunt, avoid predators, and navigate their world. When your auger blades start chewing through the ice, the lateral line picks up those intense, grinding vibrations long before the sound even fully registers. It's a full body experience for them. They feel the threat physically. Think about a deer in the woods that feels the vibration of footsteps through the ground. It's the same principle, but amplified 100 times in the dense medium of water. You are essentially setting off a seismic event directly above their heads. The immediate effect of this violent noise and vibration is often a complete shutdown. Fish that were actively feeding or cruising will instantly react. Their primary instinct is survival. For many species, especially wary ones like walleye or large perch, this means either fleeing the area entirely or locking down tight to the bottom and refusing to move. They go into a state of high alert. You could have a perfect presentation, the most enticing bait in the world, but a spooked fish will not eat. It's like trying to offer a steak to someone while a fire alarm is blaring in their ear. Their brain is focused on one thing and it isn't feeding. The bite is over before you've even had a chance to drop a line. And this effect has a much wider radius than you might think. We tend to believe the disturbance is limited to the few feet around the hole. That's a huge mistake. On a calm day, especially on a lake with a hard bottom, those sound waves and vibrations can travel for hundreds of feet. You might be drilling on one side of a point, thinking you're setting up to fish the other side, but you've already alerted every fish in the area. Imagine a whole school of crappies suspended over a basin. You drill one hole, and the entire school can either scatter or sink to the bottom in a defensive posture. You've effectively burned the spot with your very first action. The fish are still there, but they are no longer catchable fish. But the assault doesn't end with the noise. The moment your auger punches through the ice, you introduce the second shock factor: light. For most of the winter, the underwater world is a dim, dark place, especially with snow cover. Fish are adapted to this low-light environment. Suddenly, a blindingly intense shaft of sunlight beams down from your newly drilled hole. It's like a prison searchlight hitting an escaping inmate. It's another unnatural and alarming event. Think about how you feel when someone shines a bright flashlight in your eyes in a dark room. You flinch, you turn away. Fish do the same. This sudden blast of light can cause them to scatter and move away from the immediate area of your hole. This light sensitivity is particularly pronounced in certain species. Walleye, for example, are famously light-averse due to the structure of their eyes, which are built for gathering light in dim conditions. That's why the best bites are often at dawn and dusk. When you drill a hole directly over a walleye in 10 feet of water during a bright sunny day, you're doing the equivalent of setting off a flashbang in its face. It's not going to hang around to see what's for lunch. It's going to retreat to deeper, darker water, or bury itself in the nearest cover. Even less sensitive fish like perch and bluegill can be put off by this sudden, dramatic change in their environment. It's another signal that something is wrong. And finally, we have the third part of our triple threat attack: debris. After the sound and the light, a torrent of slush, ice chips, and air bubbles comes pouring down the hole. Once again, this is a completely unnatural event. Nothing in their world resembles this. It clouds up the water column and can rain down on top of the fish you're trying to target. While some might argue this could act as a form of chum, it's more likely to be seen as part of the overall disturbance. It's the final confirmation that the chaos above is a direct threat. You've just finished the attack with an aerial bombardment. Noise, light, and now falling debris. It's a wonder we ever catch anything. So, let's put it all together. You arrive at a promising spot. You fire up the auger. The fish are hit with a massive shockwave of sound and vibration. Then, a blinding beam of light punches through their ceiling. Finally, a shower of ice and slush rains down. You've effectively rung the dinner bell, but you've told the fish that they are what's on the menu. You've created a zone of fear and alarm right where you intend to fish. It's a comprehensive assault on their senses. After all that, we drop a tiny jig down the hole and wonder why nothing is biting. The reason is simple. We've just chased all our customers out of the store. Now let's tackle the core argument for drilling lots of holes: the idea of finding active fish. The theory is that fish are often concentrated in small areas, and you need to drill until you land on top of a group that is willing to eat. This sounds great in theory. The problem is, as we've just discussed, the very act of drilling can turn active fish into inactive fish. You're not just looking for a needle in a haystack, you're using a flamethrower to do it. You might be burning up the needles before you even see them. It creates a frustrating, self-defeating cycle for the angler. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine your fish finder shows a beautiful school of perch holding just off a weed edge. They're active, moving around, likely feeding. You get excited and decide to drill a hole right on top of them to get your bait down there fast. You fire up the auger. The noise hits them, the light hits them, the slush hits them. What happens? That beautiful school of active perch either scatters in every direction or they plaster themselves to the bottom, mouths firmly shut. They go from active to inactive in the 10 seconds it took you to drill the hole. It's a classic case of the cure being worse than the disease. Then the next part of the cycle begins. You drop your line down the hole you just drilled, you jig for 5, maybe 10 minutes. Nothing. Not a single mark on the flasher, so you conclude, well, no fish here, or they weren't active fish after all. You reel up, grab your auger, and move 10 feet away to repeat the exact same process. You drill another hole, spooking anything that might have been there, fish for a few minutes, and move on again. The great irony is that you were likely right on top of fish the entire time. You found them, but your method of confirming their location ensured they would never bite. You turned a honey hole into a dead sea. This is why so many ice fishing trips turn into a long cold day of exercise. Anglers spend hours drilling hundreds of holes, burning gas and energy, constantly moving. They are hunting for that one magical hole where the fish are, for some reason, oblivious to the chaos and willing to bite. They might eventually stumble upon a few less spooky fish, or a super aggressive one, but they've likely passed over dozens of catchable fish that they themselves put off the bite. They go home tired and convinced the fish just weren't biting that day. The truth is, the fish were probably biting just fine until the invasion began. So, if the Swiss cheese method is flawed, what's the alternative? It's a complete shift in mindset. Instead of a brute force assault, you need to adopt a stealthy, surgical approach. Think of yourself as a hunter stalking prey, not as a construction worker with a power tool. Your goal should be to get your bait to the fish with the absolute minimum amount of disturbance. This means being deliberate, patient, and smart about where and when you drill. It means trading the auger for your brain as your primary fish finding tool. Let's call it the less is more strategy. Here's how it works in practice. When you get to a spot you've identified from a map or past experience, a point, a weed edge, an inside turn, resist the urge to drill right on the prime location. Instead, stay back. Pick a spot on the edge of the structure, or even completely off of it. Drill your first set of holes here, and keep it to a minimum. Maybe 2, 3, or 4 holes at most, spaced out enough to give you some options. Get the noisy work done all at once, in one specific zone, and then put the auger away. The idea is to create a quiet base of operations from which you can probe the spot without causing further disturbance. This next step is the most important, and the one most anglers skip. You have to wait. After you've drilled those few holes, give the area time to settle down. Don't immediately start fishing. Let the underwater world return to normal. This could take 5 minutes, but it's often better to wait 10 or even 15 minutes. This allows any fish that were startled by the noise to calm down and resume their normal behavior. They might begin to move back into the area they were pushed out of. You need to let the memory of the earthquake fade. Grab a coffee, set up your gear, and just be patient. Silence is now your greatest ally. Once the area has quieted down, you can start fishing your pre-drilled holes. Use your electronics, like a flasher or a camera, as your eyes. Your goal now is not to drill to find fish, but to use your electronics to see if fish are moving to you. You can jig aggressively to attract fish from a distance. Because you haven't disturbed the core of the structure, fish holding there will be much more likely to come investigate your lure. You're drawing them out of their sanctuary, rather than blowing up their sanctuary and hoping someone sticks around. It's a fundamental change from an offensive to a defensive strategy, and it's far more effective. Now, let's be realistic. This stealthy approach isn't a golden rule for every single situation. There are times when drilling more holes is the right call. The key is to understand the context. The less is more strategy is most critical in shallow water, say anything less than 15 or 20 feet. In shallow water, the impact of noise and light is magnified tremendously. It's also extremely important when fishing clear water or targeting highly pressured, spooky fish. In these scenarios, silence is not just a preference, it's a necessity. Going in like a bull in a china shop is a guaranteed recipe for failure. So, when is it okay to drill more? Deep water is the first exception. When you're fishing for lake trout or walleye in 30, 40 or 50 plus feet of water, the effects of your drilling are significantly dampened. The sound doesn't penetrate as harshly, and the cone of light is much smaller and less intense by the time it reaches the bottom. The fish are simply less aware of your presence. In these deep water scenarios, drilling a grid of holes to use your sonar to find fish suspended in the water column is a valid and effective tactic. The risk of spooking them is much, much lower. The other main exception is when you're on a massive body of water searching for vast roaming schools of fish, like crappies on a huge reservoir basin or perch on the Great Lakes. In this case, you simply have to cover water to find them. Sitting in one spot and waiting might not be productive, but even here you can be smarter about it. Instead of drilling one hole, fishing it, then drilling another, try drilling a cluster of 5 to 10 holes at once. Then, move away and let that area rest for a while before you come back to fish it. Do your noisy work in batches, allowing for quiet periods in between. This is a hybrid approach that still values a bit of stealth. Finally, consider the mood of the fish. There are those rare magical days when the bite is on fire. The fish are so aggressive and competitive that they seem to ignore everything. You can drive a truck onto the ice and they'd probably try to eat the tires. On days like that, yes, you can get away with drilling more holes without much consequence. But let's be honest with ourselves. How often does that really happen? Maybe a few days a season if we're lucky. For the other 95% of our time on the ice, the fish are neutral or negative. For those days, which is most days, starting with a quiet, thoughtful approach will always put more fish on the ice than going in loud and aggressive. So, the big takeaway is this. Your auger is a search tool, but it's a loud, scary one. By blindly following the more is better mantra and turning the ice into a minefield of noise and light, you could be neutralizing the very spots you're trying to fish. The real game changer, the what it a poverot moment, is realizing you aren't just looking for fish. You're trying to catch fish that don't know you're there. The moment you start drilling, they know. This fundamentally changes your entire approach. From a brute force search to a hunter's quiet stalk. It's about using brains over brawn. Thank you for watching. If this made you rethink your strategy, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more tips that go against the grain. Now I really want to hear from you. What's the biggest fishing rule you've broken that ended up working out? Share your story in the comments below.